Welcome back to 20 Minutes of Clarity. I'm your host, Jason Noble, and with me today is Andy, the man merchant. And we're having a topic today. Does your plan need a fresh restart? It begins with small steps. If you're a high net worth professional and or business owner, you likely understand the power of strategic decision making. But there's a question. Are you leveraging the small, consistent actions to compound into exponential results? Or are you waiting for that big moment to make a big move? So, in today's episode, we're going to explore how subtle, intentional shifts in your financial habits, your investment strategies, and business plan could create a powerful, fresh start without overhauling everything at once. This slight edge, inspired by Jeff Olson's book, provides that success isn't making about massive changes overnight. It's about mastering the small daily disciplines that separate the financial success from the financially stagnant. And I got this book right here, Andy, for everyone who's watching and listening right now. I love this book. Among many other, I started 2025 with this book in hand and was able to complete it. And we'll talk more about that later. But I started off by just saying it's not about a big overhaul. It's about small incremental improvements. I'm going to turn it back to you, Andy, just talking through that concept in
Yeah.
itself.
Well, yeah, I love when you brought this on our drive in, right? We were talking like last week, and like, man, we got to let's do a show around this. Let's do a podcast because everybody's probably just getting off their New Year's resolutions or the failure of those. Many of people probably set those goals, and if you remember our one of our past shows, we talked about why we don't really use New Year's resolutions. We usually try to do these more small incremental kind of game plans and clear picture wealth program initiatives. And then you go, hey, I got this book. I'm like, man, like we should have had that on that topic. So no, excited to talk about because you know what? Let's be real. Here we are. Spring's around the corner. There's fresh growth. That's everybody probably could sit there and say, can I get a fresh start? And so we just kind of want to remind people, give them some action steps today. All those that are viewing, listening, right, around what are some of those things that kind of keep your plan on track and kind of you reference some of the points. If you want to get the book that Jason referenced, we have no endorsement there, but overall, but it's really made a difference in what he's doing so much. It inspired me to get it, and now I'm starting to go through it. So, let's kick off today and let's just highlight maybe the three main points that we want to talk about today. So I'll let you kick us off there.
Yeah. What inspired us to have this conversation in March and not January is about 80%, studies show about 80% of people who have a New Year's resolution abandon them by March. 80%. Okay, we're not throwing judgment at you. Okay. All we're saying is if you're part of that 80%, this is an episode for you. Three key topics. Making small micro adjustments that strengthen wealth over time is number one. The power of incremental investing and compounded growth would be number two. And last but not least, small shifts in mindset that lead to big financial wins will be a third topic. Before we get into like that first one a little bit more in depth, it'd be so hypocritical if I was and Eddie and I were sitting here saying, "Hey, you should make small steps and small improvements to see what that does," and us not do that ourselves. So when I was reading Slight Edge, it did say, "Hey, like read 10 pages a day of a book that's going to help you within your personal, professional health, whatever the case may be. Make sure it's not like a cheesy novel or anything like that, right? But like something that you could actually like have substance to." And so I took that very serious, and it was on my heart to start the year as well with reading the Bible in a year. But it was like, okay, let me look at the resources that are available and let me look at a cadence of what that would look like 7 days a week and how many chapters in the Bible would I have to read, how many pages, of a book, going back to the slight edge of 10, what would that look like? So we started this in January 1st, and right now I gotta say that I finished three books and I'm on my halfway through my fourth book, right? And okay, but what do I do with it? Small incremental improvements. One of the things that I was looking at doing is with our puppy, we have a golden retriever. It's like, let me walk it every single day for 30 minutes. Okay, so I take Penny for a walk for 30 minutes every day. And when I'm doing that, if I'm not with one of my kids, because if I'm with one of my kids, we're having a conversation, right? That to me was making a quality time. But if I'm by myself, I pop in a podcast or I listen to an audiobook. I do something other than music. The only time I listen to music on my drive, Andy, is my drive home on Friday. It's the only time I listen to music. And it's not to say that I don't enjoy music. It's my reward because I did small incremental things over the course of the week that's going to lead to bigger impacts,
Yeah.
right? And so there's a combination of things that occur, but I just didn't. I wanted the audience to know, like w- by all means, Andy and I, when we take off our financial planning hats, we're fathers, we're husbands, we're sons, we wear many different things over the course of our day, and we make mistakes all the time. But it's the continual improvements, that culture of continual improvement and focus of learning to strive to be better allows us to have an open dialogue conversation in front of you, right? And be open at being vulnerable and sharing like some of the stuff that we're going through in our personal lives. And maybe it just impacts one of you that's listening, but we find it worth it just to impact one of you. And so when we're looking at that key topic of micro adjustments that strengthen wealth over time, Andy, how do you think people could make those small adjustments, and what does that look like in a real life scenario?
Well, and I appreciate the fact that you kind of highlighted, when we work with clients and on these topics, small adjustments aren't always, or massive adjustments, whatever you're working on, aren't always about your financial topics. Like we're not the primary resource. That's what we do every day is help people simplify their wealth decisions. But sometimes you got to step back and remember, what am I accomplishing as a big picture, right? But let's just keep this really focused though for our lane, which is around the financial relationships. And when you're thinking about those micro adjustments, things that I look at is you got to kind of take a step back and look at the root of what the Clear Picture Wealth Program really looks at, right? We tell clients all the time, don't think about just I want to improve my net worth by X, or I want to be able to retire more, or whatever. Maybe it gets so big, and so the numbers get so kind of out there that it's really hard to follow. So instead, we want people to remember, what can you do to maybe make your cash flow a little better, right? Understanding where your cash flow is the first step, right? Do you need to save money? Now, it doesn't mean that maybe the target to get somewhere is to save, you know, I don't know, an extra X amount of dollars. We'll call it like an extra $5,000 a year could go into long-term savings, but you really don't feel comfortable doing that. Okay, back up, take a small step, save a little more, right? It could be as simple as that, but you got to take a step back and you got to look at the five categories of that impact your wealth. It's improving your cash flow. It's about making sure your assets are properly located. It's about, are you on path to retire when you want to? Do you have the right protection and do you have the right legacy? Those are the five conversations that we always talk about. Start there, figure out which of those five might need more attention, right? Where you see, we take a big picture, we broke it to five, and then we broke it down to two or three main focuses, of which then all have a little bit more micro. So I kind of wanted to kind of deconstruct this financial plan within this topic as we kind of wrap to go to the next topic overall. But that's the way I approach it, Jason, with our clients. The way I encourage people, think about your big picture, but how do you bring it back to the micro so that you can make those real steps to making a difference?
There was a client that we were working with, Andy, here in Charleston, and they wanted to save, it was about $300 a month into their accounts. And 6 months goes by, no additional savings. And like we've been reaching out, following up so that we could set up, like, move money from the bank right into the account.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing a mid-year review, and I'm going, listen, it's not working because you haven't signed the documents. It hasn't happened. What's going on? And it was just like one of those things where the money was in the bank account, that money was going. And I was like, oh, how about we make an adjustment? We could set up direct deposit right from your payroll right into like these brokerage accounts. Like he was so used to doing that with his 401k, but he never thought to do that into their joint brokerage account, right? And so we were able to set it up automatically. Every single payroll, money was being set aside. And because of just like the rounding numbers, it came to like 320 a month, right? Well, we did a meeting with them at the end of last year, going into the end of 2024, and he goes, it was out of sight, out of mind. I feel really good about it. And I was like, yeah, because of the way it worked, it was actually like around $320 a month, a little bit more than what you expected. He goes, if that's the case, why don't we go to like 400? All right. Small incremental improvement. Now, what did he ended up doing is he made a conscious decision to move it into a payroll deduction, automatic contribution, versus it being more manual of it going to the bank and then going into the account. So that's an example of a micro adjustment that is going to strengthen that particular client's financial wealth over time because of that just reoccurring savings. It wasn't a radical change. It wasn't because a radical change, Andy, he would have been calling me after a month or two going, I don't have enough money to eat. I can't get my Starbucks every morning, right? He would have called me. No phone calls, right? We were reaching out to him, on talking about other topics, but that was never brought up. It wasn't brought up until we did the end of the year review, right? And that leads us right into the second topic, which is the power of incremental savings and compounding growth. Now, while adding a slight percentage more to your investment contributions can lead to like exponential results, the concept of paying yourself first at a higher level is automating wealth accumulation just beyond just salary based savings, right? It's beyond that. Business owners could apply this slight edge principle to like cash flow, capital allocation, even to their exit strategy. Ryan Shannon in our office has the SEPA, Certified Exit Planning Advisor. And one of the things that he's constantly talking with me and you about, Andy, I mean, what I love is his passion about this topic. But when someone has a passion that you're not as passionate about, you're like, okay, okay, what? See, repeat that one more time. Let me like pay attention there. He's asking us to like make sure we get him in front of our clients that own businesses at least 5 to 7 years before they want to transition out of their business. I love that. He's looking at proactive adjustments that they could be making to make their exit planning a lot smoother. And it's open dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it going to be passed on to an employee, to a relative? Is it going to be sold to a third party? What does that look like to make sure that your evaluations look really attractive so that you're marketable? Those things come into play, Andy. Now, what would you say as far as this topic goes of incremental savings on compound growth, how that could play in to high net worth individuals, business owners, corporate executives, so forth and so
Well, I
on?
back it down to not just incremental savings. That kind of puts us into kind of a singular focus, and it's just incremental decision making. Don't try to make all these, as you just said, these radical decisions or these all in decisions in day one. Right. That's why New Year's resolutions usually fail. Is like people are like, I'm going to go all in, then they're at the gym every day, for the first 4 days, and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore because my body can't handle it. Right. Your personal self, your financial health, all these other factors that go into it can't withstand a massive change to the system, right? And so by taking what Jason just said, by taking these smaller things, if your portfolio needs an overhaul, right? Don't do it all at once. Don't rip the band-aid off and just move from this to that strategy. Or, hey, I want, we get the question, right, Jason? Hey, I hear you. I want to make sure that my assets are optimally located, right? So I need to add more private or more public or more protection-based assets. Sometimes it's okay to take our time, right? Let's take small bites. Let's be very comfortable because I think that's the most important thing when you think about leveraging small changes is you got to start taking small steps of understanding, so that you don't shock the system. And I think that's the most important thing to take away from this section of kind of our top three, what to do to have a fresh start. So if you are concerned that maybe your overall allocation is a little out of whack, we're not asking you to call us up and flip it. It's like, hey, if you need a fresh start, maybe the fresh start is a start with a fresh game plan and then work into that game plan over the next 12 to 18 months, and then have proper knowledge as to why you're doing it.
This leaks right into having the proper mindset, Andy. Small shifts in mindset could also help with having that fresh start. And not only that, but leads to big financial wins over time because you have that mindset shift. Can you talk about the importance of having, making those small steps in your mindset that can help you as well?
Yeah. No, I think about it. I love this section of it all, Jason, and that's why I kind of jumped it there the other time. We're approaching my favorite sport, and that's March Madness. That's spring basketball, right? And you look at the programs that maintain. When you're thinking about the mindset, do you have the winner's mindset? Well, to have a winner's mindset, you have to have experience and passion and winning, being a winning program that it could be, we'll say. But we want people to understand that, if we bring people into a program and a fresh start and tell them our way of doing things, and we try to shock the system, as we just said, but we're not really seeing wins because they were such big changes they didn't understand, then what we often find is that people just don't buy into the long term picture, right? So why not do small wins? Like you mentioned earlier, a really simple small win is if you don't have a will or a trust, to go get a will or a trust, right? We can win that. We can control that. We can measure the time. It's just effort and intentionality. If it's, say, I need to save a little bit more money to meet my retirement probability of success that I want to, if that's $50 a month, man, let's celebrate those small incremental wins. But you have to have the mindset first to do it, and then the mindset to measure it, and then the mindset to celebrate it once you achieve those milestones. And I think we talk a little bit about milestones overall, but it's about building consistent. I think we've talked about how many days it takes to make a habit, and you and I both have different versions. Maybe mine's a little quicker because I'm trying to get my kids to do something faster, and I tell them it's 7 days, right? I think if the real number is like 21, right? But having an intentional program and having your mindset shift is usually about because you're interested in. And so you got to create consistency, you got to create measurability, and you got to have some kind of success celebration events that we've always talked about.
Yeah, well, I would just say studies show on average about 66 days to form a new habit. That's according to the University College of London. But like, Andy, it's just okay, sure. How do they measure it down to that? Well, it's because they use a slight edge principle. They had to have. They had to measure it every single day, right?
Yeah.
But then when I'm also thinking about like the mindset shift, right? There's never a such thing as called a perfect time. Doesn't exist, right? Or I'll get to it tomorrow. No, if it's important, get to it today. Start in like estate planning. Nobody wants to talk about the end of like they're no longer here. No one likes that conversation. I don't get up in the morning excited to come into the office to talk about my clients dying. No, I just don't, right? Okay, that'd be weird if I did. But when I was doing the clear picture analysis for one of my clients earlier this year, we showed that their estate plan was a no. And they were like, Jason, no, no, like we took action on that. We got it. And I'm like, yeah, we had no records that you got it done. Okay, we'll email the lawyer today, get you the copies. Okay, so they were in fact about making sure that their information was accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when we got to another section about like doing Roth conversions because they had so much money in certain buckets and we needed to make some tactical adjustments, I said, I've had this conversation with you over the last 2 years. You've still yet to take the action. So why were you so important over that versus this? And what it was is they have to take a short-term pain now to pay the taxes to see the benefits later on in their plan. And it took them a while to go through that exercise mentally. So I needed as the advisors to start talking about, okay, if we make incremental improvements on this and you keep more money in your account and let's go to Uncle Sam because you don't have that tax drag later on. Your break even analysis on this is 76. So as long as you live past 76, we did the right thing. If you happen to pass away before 76, now there's that much more money in a Roth that your children won't have to pay the taxes on because you did up front. Like there's multiple economic benefits for this consideration. And I'm like, okay, what do you need to do to feel more comfortable with this? And they said, Why don't you send me some materials? I was like, I tell you what, I'll send you some materials every 3 weeks talking about Roth conversions, the pros and the cons. Because I didn't, and I was like, and you have 3 weeks to read what I send you. But when I reach out to you in a quarter from now, every 3 months, right? You should have read everything. Just don't delay it. Read it, take notes, and then when we meet, I just want to cover your notes. So when we did that exercise, guess what? They're doing their first Roth conversion this year. They felt more comfortable with it because they took incremental steps on a regular basis to learn more so they can make a better informed decision. I could show them all the data in the world, but if they didn't believe it in their mind and heart and take their steps themselves, they were never going to do it. And now they're able to do it. And I think their beneficiaries are going to love them for it, especially down the road. And their future self, who they are down the road, is going to love it even more when they have to pay very little to no taxes based off the financial plan that we created.
It's that
As we
ripple
wrap
effect right there, right? So the small changes you make today will have a massive ripple effect across your entire wealth life. So I know that's a whole other can of worms to open up and discuss, but
You're not cutting me
let's
off,
do
Andy. You're not cutting me off. I'm not done yet. Listen, listen. There's something I'm going to show right now. Okay. When I was doing Rise Up Kings, we wrote a letter to our future selves. This is the letter that we wrote to our future selves. Okay. Now everyone has my address, so go ahead and write the fan mail at your leisure. Um, so when I was at Rise Up Kings over a year ago, I wrote a letter to my future self 1 year out. And so when I opened up the letter, I was reading through it, going, okay, I'm doing really good in these areas, but I fell short in these other areas. What did I start to do after I opened it up? I start working on the areas that I fell short on, but I kept the consistent behavior that I did on the ones that I was doing really well. And so when I got done the book, The Side Edge, and I read Your Future Self, they even talked about this practice. Now they were talking about writing it 3 years out. What I'm doing now, taking the side edge principle, your future self, is I'm writing a letter 1 year out on the topics that I'm doing that are within the side edge approach. And I can't wait to open up my letter next year to see where did I excel in, where did I fall short. The only thing that I have perfect in my life is my wife, Rachel. Everyone knows that by now, right? I'm far from perfect. I just strive to be the best version of myself I could possibly be. And the only way I do that is by looking at the small incremental improvements that I could do on a daily basis that I won't even notice in a week, a month, maybe even a year. I may not notice. But when I'm writing that letter and I'm opening it up, it allows me to pause and reflect and allows me to take inventory of the work that I've done. Do this in your personal life. Do this for your personal finances. Do this with relationships. Do this with anything that matters to you. Just don't do this on cheesy novels that you want to read over the course of the year. And with that being said, I am Jason Noble. That was Andy, the man merchant. You just watched and listened to another 20 minutes of clarity. We hope you enjoyed it and tune in next week. Make this part of your slide edge, listening to us on a regular basis. Take care.